Good morning, guys. Welcome, or good afternoon, and wherever you're at. I know Kauai is joining us from an early time zone. She's got a real early. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope everything is spectacular in your world. And as we'll let everyone come on and say the hellos, do all that stuff, and then we'll get going. Excited to share with you guys again. And I really hope that you guys are getting value out of this. It's kind of cool seeing in different spots and places where it's showing up for myself and others. So anyways, hope you guys are good. I'll give it a few minutes, let a few others hop on, and then get rolling. Kind of keep the same format as we've had the last couple of weeks. So welcome. There we go. All right, so I was on mute. Sorry about that. I posted in the chat. Check that out. This is session 4. We have one more, so we'll finish up next week with chapters 9 and 10. And let me get this set right. Okay, chapters 9 and 10. And so this week I'm asking you guys in the chat if you could hop on as you hop on. Would love for you to comment. I'll come back to that as far as any questions as we're going along. Throw them in the chat. That way, when we get to that stuff, I'll gladly answer those things, just kind of keep it all organized. But what has been the biggest growth area for you in your vision the last 4 weeks? And I know this is kind of, repetitive, but I think as you continue on, if you're like me, what I found that vision is a bigger and bigger place in all that we do. And, it's kind of being in tune to it. It's, if you've ever heard the stories about if you want to buy a red car and say you want to buy a red, Volkswagen car, all right? Just bear with me here. It's a Volkswagen, it's a Passat. That's your gig, all right? Not a Beetle, not a Bug, not that. It's a Passat, okay? And you want to buy that, and that's all you ever see. And you drive down the road, and you're like, do I want one of those? Because it seems like they're everywhere. And to me, part of that has been this kind of venture into vision is I've probably recognized that I like vision. I like having a vision. I have a wife who's a true visionary. I kind of view as myself as a evolved visionary. But with that, everything I see and where I see struggles and where I've seen successes, and you start to pinpoint and say, oh, that's a vision issue. Oh, there's vision involved there. I even look at some people when, they have success in business or not. And I've, as I've done either, just coaching calls, whatever, just met with people, talked with people, golfed with people. It's amazing how much vision ties into it. And I was even talking to a guy, I think last week, maybe it was after the last session or something along those lines. And I said, well, what's the vision for your business? He's starting a gym. And he's like, well, I just want to continue to work with the clients I've worked with. And so I share that because I would love to know, as you guys have gone through life, as all of you on here, where has been a place that maybe you've seen vision show up and you're like, oh, they don't really have a vision, or, oh, I don't really have a vision, or a place in your life, man, just something about vision as that's getting clear, or even, a lot of your vision. I shared last Monday couple days ago, Memorial Day. Yes, Memorial Day. Had a call for one of our business groups that was mostly for men, and I shared my vision. And, you know, I followed up a few people. I said, what did you think about that? And they're like, dude, never really heard anything like that. And I realized it's because as I'm formulating this, it's really come through a lot of conversations, a lot of questions, and now starting to put handles on it so that way people can grab a hold of it and go with it. And so let's jump into chapter 7, question 7 here today. Format today is going to be much like what it's been the last 2 weeks. I'll go through in about 20, 25 minutes, maybe a little bit less, would like to get your feedback. And again, use the chat. I would love to know as you're thinking what the biggest growth area is, but as well, any questions, any thoughts, you know, as I'm going through, man, throw it out there. In question 7 is, can you sell it? And, you know, I'm going to read from Guy Kawasaki is, selling a dream means transforming a vision. That is an insight that is not yet perceptible to most people into a cause and getting people to share that cause. I mean, let's be honest, whether it's a product, a service, an ideology, everything is sales. And I know in network marketing, in the space that we work in, a lot of times people get scared about selling because the perception of selling has often been forcing something on someone that maybe that they don't necessarily want, need, or desire. And, you know, so oftentimes we're like, no, it's sharing and letting them decide. Well, I think this chapter does a great job of kind of like, well, in enrolling a team with them, you got to get them to buy in. And you have to have a customer buy in. You have to have teammates buy in. You have to have people buy in, or they're just saying, okay, whatever you want, I'm just going to do this so you can get away. And if we fall into that thought with, you know, sharing our vision as he describes here, if you're looking at it from a corporate structure, if you're the owner of the business, you know, sharing it with your board members, those advisors, your employees, and or ultimately your customers, if they can't see what you can see, well, they aren't going to go where you want to go. And to me, if we start with all of this, and I shared this yesterday in a chat that I did, it's the ABCs. You got to have action, belief, and courage. And we talk about, you know, courage here today in a later chapter, but it's all about belief. If you believe in their vision, then as you're sitting down and you're talking to people, it's getting them to believe in it too. So it's that transfer of belief really is selling. And so your vision without buy-in from others is just a dream. It's just an idea and a dream and a thought. Because, you know, the African proverb, or we've heard this too, is like, if you're not doing it with others, then it's not worth doing. If you have a vision, you're going to accomplish something, and it's all about you, and you're just going to be you and no one else, I don't know what you're ever going to accomplish. It's where I probably get a little, you know, and I hear people say this, I'm self-made. I'm like, you know what? If you're self-made, well, you haven't made much. And, you know, you got to sometimes hear that, and you're kind of like, oh, yeah, well, that's kind of a thought. It's kind of an idea. I mean, the greatest people of impact in this world did it with many, many others, not themselves. And so part of that in this vision is getting them to buy into it. One of the other notes here is, you know, your vision may be clear to you. You dreamt it. You spent hours crafting it. And not everyone else is so intimately understanding of that. And so that means you know, as he talks about so much this just bold, this deep, this, you know, really robust, I think is the word that Michael uses a lot, robust vision script, is it has so much information. It's kind of like, you know, if I was describing this painting behind me, and I'm like, yeah, I have a painting and it's just some antlers. Okay. And so you think about antlers, what are antlers? And it's like, all right, well, that could be antlers from a moose. That could be antlers from a elk. That could be a deer. That could be, you know, a lot of things. And yet if I'm like, you know, further describe it, I'm like, you know, it's a black and white photo. And it has antlers that extend out. And, you know, the background is, you know, and you get what I'm saying here? And that's that sharing that vision, because I want people to grab a hold of it. Now, as he transitioned here, and I think this is so important. I love this. I love this as a leader, because this is, in my opinion, what changes a vision and dream for one, into a cause for many is when you take it. Here's my idea. Just hear me out. This is what I'm thinking. And this is what I've dreamt. And this is just something, just a part of me. Now tell me what I'm missing. Like, help me understand, what more is there? Or, what, my mentor, John Maxwell, I love this. I just thought about this. This is great. We're in Israel. All right. Just imagine the scene. We're in Israel, and you don't have to be, spiritual or whatever to get the context. But we're in Israel, and we're at this really nice hotel. We're having breakfast before we set out for the day. And for that day, we're going to go to the Syrian-Israeli border. And there was a man, his name's Elliot Chodorf, that was, man, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but Michael uses so many stories. I might as well use a story, right? I mean, I'll make sure I can see a few shakes of your head that I'll oblige you with a story. But, we're sitting there, and trust me, it ties in. I'm not going to bore you with this story. And so we're sitting there, and it just happened to be, and John's great. John's great in the fact that, as I've learned, and I've had some pretty special personal time with him. And I feel very privileged to do that. And, he and his wife, Margaret, they said, hey, Kelly, Tyler, come sit with us. I'm like, okay, great. Yes, please. Okay. And so we sit down, we're having breakfast, and John is sitting beside me, and beside him is Elliot, and Kelly and Margaret are across the table from us. And we're talking. And Elliot's just rattling off stuff. And so Elliot he's an American from New York who ended up emigrating to Israel. And he's in the American armed forces, but he's also a part of the Israeli Defense Force. And he's a professor. He teaches a lot of things. He's he's like a guy when stuff's going down in the world, they go talk to, because he's got his fingers on the pulse. And we're talking about regards to being a leader. And, we're talking about a concept of, the 80-20 rule and the 60-40. And John had interviewed Angela Arntz last year. I think it was at his Live to Lead conference. And Angela shared a piece of wisdom from Dad. He told her is give 40, take 60, give 60, take 40. In other words, give more than you take. And I said to John, well, I think that's important, but I also see you have to take the 40, because if you aren't willing to take the 40, then you aren't valuing other people. You're constantly giving. And so it's sometimes you don't want to, if someone extends an offer to you, say, hey, as I've learned from John as well, is like, allow others to give value to you. If you're constantly like, oh, no, I can't take anything. Oh, no, please don't. Then you're not giving them an opportunity to give value. So we're talking to Elliot about this, and Elliot's talking about being leading soldiers on the march, and the things that he would do. And he would keep little pieces of candy. This is like, I think he's a major in the Israeli army. And, they'd go on like 40-mile hikes, whatever, big backpacks. Man, this story's getting long. Trust me, I'm going to bring it around. It's going to be really good. And he goes, I would keep little pieces of candy in my pocket. And as we're going along, and they're carrying, 45, 50, 60-pound packs. And, we're going on like 40 miles, and they're just dead. I would give them a piece of candy. And he goes, it was just that heart. And he goes, I would give, and I would give, and I would almost give 80, because I knew their 20 would match and maximize and would be even more. And so we're sitting there, and I'm like, I love this. I love this, because I brought the 60-40. We're talking about the 80-20. We're talking about candy. And in what John said, he goes, this is layered learning. And to me, that's exciting. And so when I think about this idea of sharing a vision with others, you allowed it to build layers. And so if you just rely on your vision and just what you can think of and what you can accomplish, then that's one small piece. But if you allow others to give their input, then all of a sudden it builds layers. And I don't know if you guys have ever, and this is, kind of a Middle Eastern, kind of Greek, whatever. I think the Greeks really brought it, but I saw it a lot in Israel, baklava. And if you've ever made baklava is just these layers and layers and layers and layers, and just tons of layers. And I had probably the most amazing baklava in my entire life. And I'm not a baklava fan. I'm not down with honey, and it's just not my thing. Kelly's like all about it. And it is this concept of layering. And as you sell it and you allow others to layer, all of a sudden they start to take ownership. And when they start to take ownership, all those layers bind together. Because if you've ever made lasagna or you make a baklava, all of a sudden, you kind of throw it in and it's like all these loose pieces, but then all of a sudden they start to meld together and they hold each other together. And that's giving that input and saying, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Oh, well, that's great. Let's go with that. Let's take that to another level. And to me, that's part of like selling at its best, is when you make it, and we talk about this later, and I think it is, what can you learn from selling your vision? I'm going to jump way ahead because I just told a 10-minute story that hopefully you guys got value out of. And it's, the 5 keys to selling your story is commit to success. I'm going to do it. I'm going to accomplish it. I'm going to go through the good, bad, and the ugly, but then understand the customer. And here's one of the things that I've learned in life is, people sometimes think, well, they're, the classic customer, they're buying my product or service. And as I've been taught and I've learned is there's internal and external customers. So if we have I'll say this from a leadership point of view, okay? You guys right now are customers. You're customers of whatever I have to offer. And so if I'm not meeting you guys where you're at, if I'm not meeting your needs, and, there's a point where, I maybe changed a little bit what we did here because I reached out to some people and said, hey, how's that fitting your needs? And they're like, oh, let's change a little bit. Okay, because it's not about me. And that's what he says here is understand the customers. What do they need and their needs? But there's internal customers and there's external customers. And so everyone has to be sold. And part of that selling is understanding how can that fit a need? How is that a solution? And so if your vision isn't a solution for the entire team, it's just servicing you, well, then all of a sudden people aren't going to sit through the rejection or the resistance. And we're going to see that in chapter 8 is, how to fight resistance, how to deal with resistance, how to, take that on. And, that's part of it, owning it. And the more people that own it and say, yeah, that's right. Okay, that's exactly what I can believe in. And you face resistance most when your beliefs at the highest. And so I go back to the key, in my opinion, my experience, what I've learned, and this is where I've seen failures, is when I didn't believe. When I didn't believe in myself, it was really hard to sell. And when I was working for a company, I didn't believe what they had to offer. It was really hard to sell. And I'm guessing people thought that. I've seen in our business, network marketing, because it's over 9 years, this ebb and flow. And when people are all about belief in their vision and they buy it all, dude, and no one's stopping them. And then all of a sudden that belief wanes because that vision's not there, and they're not being sold a new vision, something bigger, bolder, beyond, where they've been, something more enticing. All of a sudden their confidence in everything, all that resistance starts to build up. Wow, that was not sure what was on my notes. So I'm going to take a second here and review my notes and see what else we can hit in the next couple minutes. And then we'll scroll back through the comments. We'll get through all that stuff. I love what you guys are sharing there. Okay, the 3, where are the challenges in selling the vision? There is change, personnel, and feedback. Hey, if you guys ever read the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Dude, that was a long time ago. Man, I think I read that in college. Kelly did. Okay, good. I may need to go back to that. So if you're not familiar with the book, Who Moved My Cheese, is about these mice in this, it's really a fable, but it's mice in a maze. And, they learn it all of a sudden one way, and all of a sudden it gets moved and they're like, and, they freak out. And that's where, he's talking about here, when you sell a vision and it's fearful to change. And this morning I spoke to, our team in our Facebook Live, and I shared, and it was a lesson taught to me. It's like, don't leave somewhere, go somewhere. So go to something new and exciting. And so if you're selling a vision, you're selling it to people and you're telling them, hey, I'm not going to convince you to leave where you're at. You got to accept that, but I want to tell you where we're going. And I'm going to paint the picture so amazing where you're going and the vision of where we're going. And this ties to another point. I'm just going to blend all this together, which is fine, right? It doesn't matter. I'm doing this. hopefully adding value to you guys or just rambling. But one of the things he talks about here is when you have a new vision. And I saw this from a company yesterday, and it's just kind of like, I sometimes I don't get it. Let me give you another experience of mine. I was a nutritionist for cows. And one of the first things that I was taught when I was a nutritionist for cow, and a cow, she likes consistency. Really, there's a lot of things in life that people like consistency and they don't realize they like consistency. They think they get bored or whatever, so they got to change it up. But reality, that's not good for anything. Consistency is good. And one of the things I was told is sometimes you would have to make dietary changes for cows. And one of the things that was taught to me is, you kind of do that. So it's slowly progression. It's kind of like the frog in the boiling pot. You inch up that temperature more and more and more. And then all of a sudden you've made the adjustment to where you need to go to. And it's this long, drawn out, slow change. You just kind of bridge the gaps. And I never comprehended that because of my experience, of my personal experience being in situations, the right change for all the right reasons was always better. And it might be a little rocky for a day or two, but then all of a sudden you're off with it. You're going. It's kind of like the Band-Aid. How are you pulling the Band-Aid off? You're going to take it one little slow piece at a time and rip that sucker off and let's go. I'm going to rip it off and let's go. And one of the things that I've learned, and kind of part of this, my opinion in regards to the people that are a little scared to change, is like, okay, don't tell them all the ways their life's going to change, maybe for the worse. Say all the things that's going to stay the same, because then what's that consistency in the good? And say, hey, we're going to get rid of the bad. What are those things that frustrate you? And so that part of that change is understanding, well, maybe this is the way you used to do it. That's great. We're going to still hold on to that because that's really important. That's what got us here. But you know what? All of a sudden, we're at a different place and we need to adjust and change. One of the things as I was making notes, it's kind of like a plant. Have you ever guys noticed, you start a plant in a little pot, it grows, and you got to put it in a new pot. Well, if you keep in that little pot, there's two things that happen. If you're like a fish, it stays the size of that pot. So if you don't change the pot, you don't get any bigger. If you don't take the tree and put it into a different pot, all of a sudden the roots grow out, and all of a sudden it dies. And so I thought about this from the change, and the respect is like every day we're growing and changing, we're shedding skin. And so we need to embrace that. That, yeah, if you're the same as what you were 6 months ago or worse, well, that's not a good thing. If you're the same, it's not a good thing. You got to change with it. And so that part of that leave, and don't leave, but go. And part of that is, as we discussed here in the chapters, kind of the issues, the challenges, and respecting the past. The past is what got you here, but the past won't get you there. So yeah, I appreciate the past. That's fine. I'm not going to defile the past. I'm not going to say, why did we ever do that? It's kind of like if a 5-year-old child, all of a sudden you move them into a bed and they're like, why did you ever have me in that crib? That was stupid. What did you ever do? Why didn't you just put me in this king size bed when I was, a newborn? And you're like, well, because it didn't fit you. That isn't what you needed at that time. You evolved and moved through. And it's kind of, I think this with a vision and change is telling people it's like, it's okay. What got us here, but it won't get us there. And that's where I'm just tying this back in. It's kind of like, that's why you need to rehash your vision every kind of a lot. And let me hold on to that and kind of, I think Michael talked about it, or I was listening to the podcast that I think someone recommended in the Facebook group with Michael Hyatt and Craig Rochelle. And he's like, you got to keep that vision there, and you keep saying that vision, and doesn't mean you lose sight of the vision. We've talked about this, kind of the GPS, how you get there, the strategy, all that stuff. But understanding that vision may grow, because there's times where it grows, and it's kind of like, I think if you were hiking, he talks about the valley, the mountain. He talks about Eric Wainmeyer, and you get to a first peak, and it's kind of like a false peak. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I got a higher peak. Well, all of a sudden your vision changed a little bit. It's like, all right, roll with it. We're still climbing, right? And I think that's where it comes into this whole respecting the past, what got you there. Okay. Let's talk about resistance for a little bit. This chapter is a little shorter, and I think part of that is, it was shorter in my mind, shorter in the notes that I got out of it. So that's what it was. I thought it was a really good chapter of understanding, dealing with those obstacles and understand this to me gets back into the strategy side. It's like, hey, you're going to have that. You're going to have resistance. If it's anything worthwhile doing, there's going to be people that don't agree. Now, part of your job as a guide, as a leader, is to go slow enough that you're moving forward, but yet you don't lose the people behind you, but fast enough that they don't get bored with it. So in other words, slow enough that they stay with you, but fast enough that they want to keep going. And to me as a leader, that's just kind of being willing to say, yeah, I might go some places that you don't want to go, but I'm doing it because we're going to a bigger place. And just trust me that if we get somewhere where I don't know, that I'll throw up my hands and say, I'm going to protect you, but yet let's go to something bigger. And, my thought on this is, how to face resistance and understanding your vision. Is it too big? Well, I'd rather have a vision that's too big than one that's too small, because the vision that's too small ain't going to change anything. But a big vision, hey, you need big people. You need a lot more people. And, I've learned that from some of my mentors. It's like, hey, the bigger the vision, the more you're going to have to grow and find more people with more talent than you. And that's exciting. It's fearful to think that you kind of get stopped short. Think, oh, and I could have done more. People overestimate what they can, accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a month, a year, 5 years, all that stuff. It's because, it's how we roll with that, how we maneuver through it. And so some of the resistance, it comes social. We talked a little bit about the change, the environmental. It's like, well, this is the way it's been. How could we do it different? Well, we have a bigger vision. We need to enlist bigger tools. The environmental, the psychological, all of those resistances. And I think it's important to be empathetic in those and also put them in their place to say where they align. And that can be difficult and hard. That's where facing the resistance. But, as he talks about the keys there, be tenacious. You're going to have resistance, and take resistance as a good thing, because everything worthwhile is uphill, right? So if it's easy sledding, you're not trying hard enough. You're not trying something that is disruptive. You're not trying something that's going to make an impact, but yet have integrity. He talks about the story with the author, and I think it's very telling of Michael's character. And it's probably why I enjoy listening to him and reading his books is, use that example, and that's fine. But to see some of that stuff play out in real time, it's like, hey, I'm not going to compromise my integrity for $1. I'm not going to compromise my integrity today for something short-term that may cost me long-term. And I think having that tenacity, the integrity, and then being courageous in that to say, yeah, it may set me back. It may cost me, but I'd rather have all of those things than not. In that courage is the ability to get up and do it again. And so from being a visionary leader, and we talk about, kind of one of the things that he described here is, why do you want to? Well, because you see a better place to go. You see a better, meadow in the horizon to graze. And, part of that is you want to take people with you to it. And so courage lasts when all of a sudden that hike is really, really tough. And hey, on the other side of this, it's going to be better. We just got to get through it. So having that tenacity, having that courage, that's what pushes you forward. That's what allows you to serve others and taking people with you and sharing that. So that's what I got. I don't know if I hit half my notes or we just rambled for, 25 minutes, but my hope is that I was a river. I shared some stories. I shared some testimony. I shared some examples of things that I kind of, formulate through as I read this. And so I'm going to hop back here through some of the comments and see what you guys have to share. And please, any more, like what were your ahas? What were your takeaways? We'll try to get to them. I'll let you guys share. But from Taylor, when facing rejection, I take it less personally. We can get back on track more quickly because my vision pulls me to keep going. I love that. When you have your vision, you're not afraid of what other people are saying. And, where's that going to take you off course? Like, oh, you don't align with my vision. Oh, no big deal. You like vanilla ice cream. I like chocolate. We both like ice cream. Woohoo! Great. That's how I look at that. Focus on what the vision looks like, not how we're going to get there. Yep, you brought that up last week. I love that, Kawhi. and eye-opening, made me realize strategies may change. People may not use systems, and I have to adjust. Rob and Rita shared their biggest growth recently is realizing and being okay with not getting everyone's approval, attracting the right people while being completely real, not following someone else's idea of how we should be, act, post, represent, finding our own way forward. And along with me, well, I'm just a river. So, okay, the stories, thank you. Learning the freedom and saying no to something that doesn't fit your vision. Yes, it can be very, I think when I think about vision, I think about the times that it's shown in my life. It's just like, oh, that's good for you. That just doesn't fit for me. That's, I have something different, but yet you can be more, I think more accepting. And yet you're looking for people that share that rather than thinking everyone, and kind of getting tricked out on that. Okay. Have a vision, have been in survival mode for a long time and was raised to do a good job with benefits. Love the encouragement. Okay. Good. Let's see, Kathy. People working and playing at the edge of their abilities are most often those who are successful leaders. Be courageous. Greatness happens by design. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing that. This is what I'd like to do for the next, 30 minutes is what challenges are you guys seeing? What challenges that maybe I can share some of my experience, or, maybe someone else on this call can share their experiences in regards to challenges in the vision. And so I want to open that up, that you guys are free to share, and, what challenges, what resistance are you facing? Because I think, part of it is you can sell it, and then all of a sudden you hit that wall of resistance. And that wall of resistance, and maybe some of that's internal. And I think the biggest thing to remember, and I can't stress it enough, and I was thinking about this, I think yesterday, and I was thinking about sharing my vision. And like I said, I shared it on Monday, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to share it again. And I thought about that, and it's like, oh, well, do I want to share it again? Because every conversation I've had with people, I've been talking about it. And then whenever I've been around people, I've been talking about this vision that I'm formulating and describing, like, well, do I want to go through it again? And I made the comment to Kelly. I said, I wonder if this is why Kelly doesn't like to talk a lot. I'm like, is this why you don't like to talk a lot? It's because you're constantly thinking about it. And she's like, no, that's not me. I'm like, well, that's a fail. I didn't get that one right. But I realized that, sometimes where I think people, and this goes back to the whole Michael in his coach, is like, when you're constantly formulating, you're like, how does that fit? Let me, twist and turn and reformulate that. That's all in your head, and no one else is hearing that. And even if you have 10 conversations with someone, that's 1/10 of the conversations you have as you're evaluating life and going through it. And so to think that, oh man, I got to say this again. Well, they've probably either only heard it once or never heard it, or maybe they've heard it twice. And, I think when a great thing is when you start sharing your vision, someone's like, yeah, and then they can finish it for you. Because then all of a sudden they've heard it enough, because that's what happens for you. Because if I were to sit down and repeat my vision exactly, I haven't said enough where I have it down memorized. I have the ideas, I have the bullet points. But yes, so I'm going to answer Joni's question. Has anyone used the website tools to create your vision? So I've gone through it. I haven't written it totally out. I've kind of been waiting till the end of this to say, okay, now that we've gone through all of it, and I'm going to get there and I'm going to go piece by piece. But one of the things that I have done is I've been formulating it a lot, and I've been asking for a lot of input, and I've been having a lot of those conversations and doing that testing and see where it fits. So, Kathy, I've thought small for so long that thinking big is a growth step. The more I grow, the bigger I realize my vision can be and should be. Oh, love that. Good. What other resistance are you using? Is it personal resistance? Is it personal resistance? Because I would say that's a little bit, Kathy, is, some of that was personal resistance saying, well, I shouldn't have a big vision. Maybe I've just kind of fit into where I'm at and that challenge. And so I think a lot of that's personal. I've experienced that. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have enough value. Why? I'm dealing with my own difficulties. Maybe people don't want to, go where I want to go, or maybe it doesn't fit them. So that's how I feel about that one. Comparison to others moving faster. What is it? I think the quote is, comparison is the thief of all joy. And it's, everyone's driving a different car. Everyone's driving on a different road. And so when we look around and compare, the only thing it does is it keeps us off the road that we're on. It doesn't mean that we couldn't turn. It doesn't mean that we couldn't improve. But that's how we usually get in accidents, I think. Right? I've heard that quote. What other thoughts, guys? Questions, resistance, thoughts. Have you guys shared this with people and they were, seeing good feedback? I need to work on my insecurities, lack of confidence. The book is making me realize that I'm vision driven and surrounded with a lot who aren't. I need to be a bit more stubborn. Okay. There's virtue in that, right? To me, I'll share a personal lesson that I've had to go through is, one of the ways that my insecurity showed up is I would tell people, what I knew. And, I would try to use that to justify who I was. And one of the things that I've really evolved and learned there, it's like, well, it isn't about what I knew. It's about what I've experienced and what are those experiences helping others with. And letting my mentors really work on me there. And, one of my that was my mask to my insecurity. And what I had to learn is that actually to fix that was being more empathetic. And in that process, I kind of evaluated and I looked and said, part of people would see me oftentimes as being very callous, very hard, very intense. And that was a mask for some of my experiences and my insecurities, is that I was viewed that way. And what I saw is I needed to allow my empathy to be more vulnerable and authentic and say, hey, no, it's not about me. How can I help? But I also realized that, those that are sometimes almost too empathetic, they start to be doormats. They start to enable. They start to just let other people say, hey, you do whatever you do, and they don't stand up for themselves. Because to me, that's being overly empathetic, where you're not saying, nope, good for you, not for me. I'm not going to own all of that, where I'm not going to turn my empathy into wild sympathy and allow it to just bear me down. And so that was one of the things that I had to learn through. And it's being empathetic and practicing that healthy empathy. And, like I said, it's a spectrum. One side is hard and callous and intense. People, kind of like, oh, it's all about them. The other side is, I'm just a doormat and I'm here to enable everyone. And to me, it's finding that center that is really where it's powerful to say, hey, I can understand where you're at and been there. And I'll come with you there, but I'm not going to, take your spot, because that doesn't do us any good. And the same point, it's, not being so callous to where you're like, it's all about me and just get out of my way. How can I get to the next thing? And so I think that a lot goes back to the, understanding your customers. And everyone in life, you're selling to everyone. It's a customer in some way. So it is really making it about them and understanding them. I don't know if that helped, but that's something I've had to learn through and grow through. Let's see, intense. I have a challenge communicating my vision. Many don't read emails so much to write and text. Everyone communicates differently. Very hard for a business with a large client base. What I would say to that, Sherry, one of the things that, and I had a friend that asked this, and we were talking, I think Kelly and I were on a podcast and sharing, how do you lead a large group? And, one of the things that I've done is, I have a Facebook Live every morning, Monday through Friday at 8:00. Why? Because it's at least I'm there consistent, and it's a video that people are seeing, because people like video. Not everyone likes to read an email. Not everyone, it's just whatever. And so it's like, hey, I'm trying to put it in as many places as I can, and, being involved in different places. So my suggestion of that is, find the communication style they like the most, and that means you have to morph to it. You can't force people to come to the communication style you prefer. You have to go to them. And so how I shared that on that podcast, like, yeah, Facebook Live, you can do videos. I have friends that only communicate on Marco Polo. I have two friends, and that's the only, Marco Polo is the only way I use it for two people. There's Telegram app. There is, Facebook Messenger. There's Instagram. There's text message. And I use all of them. not because that's what I prefer, but that's how I can communicate best with others. And so what I've learned there, in order to communicate best, you have to go where they're at. And then you can invite them in maybe to a smaller space, whatever's more convenient, but going to them. And so my suggestion, Sherry, is using a lot of video, using video that is a place where you're sharing with them, you're connecting with them. And a part of that too is learning through the process of how to communicate to them, and asking them to be a part of the process and not necessarily forcing it. Now, if you want to say, this is our channel, you're only going to get people engaged that are in that channel. And part of that as well is every situation you're around them is re-stressing. I don't want to say restating, that vision, what that vision is. But as well, I think part of that too is when you're asking for people to engage and give you their feedback and bring their vision in, all of a sudden they start to engage more in that platform and that vehicle to communicate. And so, yes, Kathy, I do that in our network marketing business page. Yes. So let's see. Any other questions? Resistance? Thoughts? Thank you guys for sharing this. I appreciate it. Hopefully you got value out of my experiences. Kelly, I'm challenged with being specific in my vision out of fear of not attracting everyone. Okay, you're not going to attract everyone. And I think that's the first thing to gather, right? You're going to attract the people that align with your vision. You're going to attract the people that want to go where you want to go. I think that's one of the biggest faults that I probably ever had in business. Is when I started my business, my nutrition business, I just wanted to work with anyone and everyone. And, oftentimes in our network marketing business now, we'll say, hey, pick your avatar. Who do you want to solve the problems for? And I think that's important, because if you have a problem that fits everyone, then you don't help anyone. And it's understanding I solved this specific problem. And what I found is people are like, oh, you fixed that problem. Well, I don't have that exact problem, but I can see how it would fit. So I'll use that. And I think what my encouragement there is be more specific in your vision, but allow it to be morphed and really make it about who do you want to take with you and be a part of that. So it's that part of the internal team that I think Michael talks about is like, who are you? Who are we? What problem do we solve? What transformation do we make? Where are we going? It's answering some of those mission questions and tied it in the vision. And so it's like, once you get into that, there's enough people in the world. And if you're saying your vision is so specific, well, you're going to have really, really driven people that tie into that. And if not, then you're allowing people as well to say, hey, maybe that's not exactly for me, but I like the bigger picture. I'll go along with it. And so I think it's a learning lesson I had to go through, is understanding who did I work best with. And when I found out who I worked best with, I was the most fulfilled. And one of the things that really helped me there was when I utilized StrengthsFinder 2.0 to find out my strengths and understand, oh, that's my sweet spot. That's what I do really well. And, part of that, I'm just going to throw this out, and it's fine. Maybe you're not, maybe you don't have a lot of inherent vision. Maybe you're not someone that, sees this new world that just, as it describes, and that's okay. There's some people that just aren't. John Maxwell wrote the book, Put Your Dream to the Test. And he was challenged after writing that. And he came up with people, I don't have a dream. You're like, what? You don't have a dream? And you're like, no, not really. And he had to relent and say, oh, there's some people that aren't dreamers, but they love to help other people accomplish their dreams. And so maybe it's partly understanding it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe my vision is help supporting someone else's vision that I can latch a hold of and say, hey, that's for me, and be a part of that. So that's just a thought. Let me go back. Cruz, resistance. Holding myself back for years in retail management, lost vision for myself, was in a slump. I'm finding ways to stay focused and kick the old thought habits myself. Yep, that I would say that's a lesson that, I know people have to go through. That's something that I had to personally work through in regards to finding what value I had. And, I just mentioned about strengths, and that really helped me. And it's been on this, challenge to say, what value do I have? And I think part of that vision is, who else can I realize are in that same boat? Let's see, Joanne, I kind of set my vision aside, seeing how others were doing things. I kind of felt my vision must be not right because others are going about it different than I am. Well, I'm not sure you've heard the person is Steve Joyce, so it set me back. This year, I've really focused in and I'm building back up. This book couldn't have come at a better time. I think what really fits here is, especially entrepreneurially, especially, being in network marketing spaces. I think everyone on here is in network marketing. There's a few others that have left. That's okay. Maybe they watched the recording. Hi. Network marketing is entrepreneurial, but it's not. It's kind of almost more of a franchise build, system, because you kind of got to follow this paradigm, but yet it's not. And that's what almost makes it a little hard sometimes. And I think part of that is, part of it with network marketing is you have to align to the vision of the company. And if you align to the vision of the company and what they're trying to accomplish, well, and you can, say that your vision drafts with part of that, you can be slightly, instead of we're all going north, well, I can be going northwest. I'm still kind of going north. And eventually you may have to realign yourself and say, hey, am I the right place? But I think the thing that I've learned here so much is your strategy can be totally different. Now, there may be best practice strategies for that specific style of person, and your best strategy may be different. If we're going to run and, say my stride length is 3 feet, and I tell you the best stride length is 3 feet, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm 9 inches shorter. I have to have a 3 foot stride length. Well, that's going to be really hard for me. And you just get it. It's not exact, but I think that's where that system, kind of like Kawhi was talking about earlier, is that, you can be hung up so much on the way people do it that's not their vision. They may not have a vision. And so they're like, well, I'm just going to do the job. And it really is saying, hey, what's your vision? Well, I don't know. This is how you do it. Like, well, why do you do it that way? Well, this is the only way to do it. It goes back to like the ham example, all those, other things, and saying, all right, we can have a like vision, but we're going to have a different way of getting there. And that's okay. We can have the idea, let's climb this mountain. You're like, I love to rock climb. You're like, oh, I just like to go on the easy trail. Well, both get to the top of the mountain, maybe different places and paces, but yeah, that's what I think of there. How do you find people who fit your vision? This seems like a simple question, but do you share your vision regularly and to everyone, or put yourselves in environments? Yes, exactly. That's what you do. It's sharing. It is being willing to share in conversations. It's being willing to ask. It's being willing to maybe find people that are have the similar values. I think let's start there. I think vision and values tie in a lot. So, if someone's values are the same, they could have, they could look a lot different. They can even have a different vision, but if their values are the same, I think that's a great place to start. And so when you're around people that maybe have similar values, and then you kind of work off of that and say, well, this is my vision. It's like, well, we have the same values, but I would, maybe I'm not down with that vision. That's okay. And, it really takes starting to share and talk to people and really kind of formulate that, and, finding out, well, maybe my vision isn't something that, I would say not that people want to go along with, but I think that's also, it's kind of like, who's your vision to serve? Is it to serve you? Is it to serve a greater group? And if it's to serve a greater group, it may be at some elements detrimental to you personally, but yet it's going to take everyone further. And I don't know if that makes sense, but, your vision doesn't always have to be, like here, let's be example. My vision is to, help others accomplish more. My vision is to, help men find a place to where they can be a part of the team and really feel like they can accomplish more and have mentorship. And I understand that means it's going to be detrimental to me sometimes, because I'm going to have to make sacrifices that maybe I don't want to make. Maybe I'm going to have to be away. Maybe I'm going to have to be on calls or whatever else, but yet you still got to do it. And yet that's detrimental to me at a certain point because I maybe don't have as much freedom, but yet it's definitely worth it. And so I don't know if that's just kind of a real soft example, but hopefully that puts that into light. All right. That was a lot. I kind of rattled on. Did you guys get anything good out of that? Did that help? Okay, good. Anything else? Any other questions? Thoughts? If not, it's Friday. It's a beautiful Friday. Hopefully it's beautiful where you're at. It's gorgeous here. And I'm going to say thank you for joining me. And I will see you guys next week for the last session. All right? So signing off. Have a great day. Thank you guys all for being here. And whatever I can do to help you, please post it in the Facebook group and let me help you guys out. So bye.